Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into a really fascinating text today. It's about a Taoist internal cultivation art called Bone Marrow Nei Kung.
That's right. And the goal here, according to the source anyway, is pretty ambitious. Rejuvenate the bone marrow, enhance the blood, nourish your life force.
Yeah, it's like trying to get a handle on this ancient approach to health, longevity, and it definitely challenges some, modern ideas about how our bodies work and age.
Absolutely. Our source is a deep dive into the universal Tao system, specifically as taught by Master Mantak Chia.
Right, and he seems to be someone who brought together a lot of different threads, didn't he? Like Buddhist meditation, Tai Chi, even Western anatomy.
Exactly. He presents this bone marrow Nei Kung as a sort of modern approach, but one with very deep roots, thousands of years back in ancient China.
So the core idea,
Hmm.
it seems to revolve around understanding and cultivating qi. How does the text describe qi?
It's described as the fundamental electromagnetic energy. You get it from outside sources, food, air, sun, moon, stars, that kind of thing. But also, crucially, it's generated internally by our own organs and glands.
Ah, so it's not just external fuel. We make it too.
Precisely. And the suggestion is, if you work with this energy, focus internally on the organs, the glands, not just, say, building muscles, you can tap into a really lasting kind of vitality.
And the text gets pretty provocative, doesn't it? Suggesting aging, even how we die, might be, well, influenced by our choices, our practices.
It does. It poses it as something we might have more influence over than we generally think, based on how we manage this internal energy.
Okay, so we're going to explore the theories, the practices laid out here. Things like different breathing methods, energy use.
Right? Various massage techniques, too, and then some methods that might sound quite surprising.
Like the hitting
Mm-hmm.
and the weightlifting stuff.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
our mission really is to pull out the most important insights from this material for you, highlight what makes it unique, what the source claims are the benefits, and also, really importantly, the precautions.
Definitely the precautions. Okay, let's get started.
What's really striking, I think, is that fundamental shift in perspective the text offers.
How so?
Well, Western fitness often really prioritizes the muscular system, right? Force strength, how you look.
Sure.
This Taoist approach, it's fundamentally focused internally first. The core idea is that real lasting health, that vitality, it isn't just skin deep or muscle deep. It's rooted in the health and the energetic function of your internal organs and glands.
So less about polishing the car's exterior, more about tuning the engine inside.
That's a good way to put it. The text basically argues that the organs and glands, they nourish everything else, and the bone marrow is critical because it produces the blood that carries all that nourishment.
Right.
So cultivating these internal systems is foundational. They even suggest that, without enough energy coming from the organs and glands, any muscles you build won't have that true deep power.
So the marrow is key to unlocking a different kind of energy.
That's the idea. An internal energy quality that purely external training maybe can't access in the same way.
Okay, and this energy they work with, qi, you said it's electromagnetic. How do they aim to manage it? What's the goal?
Well, qi, described as fundamental electromagnetic energy, comes from outside, generated inside. The goal is basically balance. Ideally, you want to generate and absorb more qi than you lose day to day.
Makes sense.
Because the text warns, if you're consistently losing qi faster than you gain it, you can actually drain your internal sources. And that leads to what they call painful aging and an early demise.
Painful aging and an early demise. Okay, that definitely gets your attention. So how do you actually work with this energy then? Let's get into the practices. The source lists 5 key functions for bone marrow Nei Kung. Breathing energy in, circulating sexual energy.
Right, vibrating bones for absorption, compressing energy into the bones, and enhancing the nervous and lymphatic systems. It's quite a list.
So where do you start? What are the core kind of foundational practices?
Bone breathing and bone compression are often presented as the fundamentals. Bone breathing is described as a meditative process, slow, deep breathing cycles. Okay. And you're visualizing, you're intending to draw qi in through your extremities, fingers, toes, other bony points like elbows, knees, and then mentally spreading it through your whole skeleton. The text breaks it down into stages. You start small, then integrate bigger areas.
And bone compression, that comes next.
Yeah.
It builds on the breathing.
Yes, exactly. It's sort of the physical follow-up to the energetic breathing. After you've breathed the qi in, visualized it around the bones, Bone compression uses specific muscle contractions to physically push or pack that energy into the bone marrow through its pores.
So you squeeze the muscles around the bone.
Yeah. The sequences: inhale, visualize the energy spiraling and packing around the bone. Then you squeeze the surrounding muscles tight to physically compress that energy into the marrow. Unlike bone breathing, where you might exhale certain things, here you're really consolidating, keeping the energy in the bones.
So it's not just visualization. You're actively using muscles to pack the energy in. I remember the preface mentioned the author feeling his bones like tingling and purring after doing this.
Yeah, and that fits the theory in the text that this combo of breathing, visualizing, and physically compressing makes the bones more, well, vibrant and receptive.
Okay.
And this connects to another idea: vibrating the bones. They say this helps open the pores for energy absorption and also clears out unwanted fat, making space for marrow and qi. Which leads us to another pretty significant practice involving potent energy.
Ah, right, the sexual energy massage.
Yeah.
This seems like a really central piece, focusing on releasing and circulating Qing Qi. What exactly is Qing Qi according to this text?
Good question. They define it as a combination of sexual energy and sexual hormones. So it's both the energetic aspect and the physical substance.
And the purpose is?
The purpose is to take this really potent energy, which they say often gets dissipated or lost, and circulate it throughout the whole body. Ultimately, the goal is to absorb it into the bones for rejuvenation. It's also meant to replenish the genitals via the microcosmic orbit flow and revitalized organs. The source details several techniques, starting with preparatory ones like the power lock.
The power lock. Yeah, it sounded quite complex. Contracting genitals, perineum, anus, sipping air, clenching teeth, tongue on the palate. What's the idea behind doing all that at once?
It's a very specific combination. The text explains these non-sexual contractions are designed to draw that Qing Qi upward, away from just the genitals, into higher energy centers in the body. They talk about using a sacral pump, tilting the sacrum, and a cranial pump activated by clenching teeth and pressing the tongue up. There's even a specific finger pressure point near the perineum mentioned, apparently to help lock the energy into that upward flow.
And there's a pretty stark warning that goes with handling this energy, isn't there?
Absolutely critical. The text is very explicit, and this is a direct quote they use. You should never leave hot sexual energy in the head for long periods of time. Always draw it down to the navel through the functional channel of the microcosmic orbit at the end of your practice. Don't cook your brain.
Wow. Don't cook your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's memorable. And probably very important advice within this system.
Extremely. If you're ever unsure where the energy is, they say the safest place to guide it is the navel center. It's a very vivid caution about managing this powerful energy properly.
Okay, so beyond the power lock, there's genital compression and a preliminary cloth massage mentioned.
Right. Genital compression is about collecting and compressing energy specifically in the genital area itself, scrotum for men, or the lower abdomen, pelvic region, ovaries for women.
And the cloth massage.
The preliminary cloth massage, usually done with a silk cloth, is applied to the genital area, perineum, coccyx, and sacrum. It's done before and after the main sexual energy massage. The idea is it stimulates and replenishes local circulation and energy flow there.
And the sexual energy massage itself gets into really detailed techniques like specific ducts and tendons for men, or breast massage, and this internal egg exercise for women.
Yes, the techniques laid out are quite specific. For women, that internal egg exercise, using a jade egg, it provides resistance to strengthen the vaginal contractions. This is seen as really key for circulating qi effectively in that whole pelvic region. These massage techniques are presented as really fundamental, powerful ways to harness and distribute that Qing Qi, especially when you combine them with other practices aimed at retaining the energy.
Okay, moving on to another practice that sounds maybe even more surprising, hitting. The whole idea of hitting your body with, like, wire bundles or sticks.
Yeah.
It just seems completely counterintuitive if you're aiming for health. How does the text justify that?
It definitely sounds jarring, doesn't it? But within this system, the hitting isn't random violence. It's used with a very specific energetic purpose.
Which is?
The core idea is that vibration and controlled impact can be tools for internal energetic work, not just, causing bruises or toughening the skin externally. According to the text, these vibrations help open the pores of the bones wider to absorb energy, and they also aid in detoxifying the system. There are different methods described.
Like hitting with packing. What's that?
Yes, that's probably the most comprehensive method they describe. It's done together with bone breathing and bone compression.
Oh, so it's integrated.
Right. You do the inhale, spiral, pack, and squeeze chi into a specific area, just like we discussed. Then, while you're holding that compression and packing, you use a special wire hitter, it sounds like a bundle of wires or maybe a beanbag, to hit along specific lines on that body part.
Okay.
The vibrations from that hitting are said to amplify the compression effect and drive the chi deeper into the bones, enhancing absorption.
So it's not just hitting anywhere. It's targeted vibration along specific lines.
Yeah.
Like energy channels.
Exactly that. The lines they map out correlate with traditional acupuncture meridians or energy pathways. Then there's also hitting to detoxify.
How's that different?
It uses the same tools, the wire hitter or beanbag, and the same lines, but you do it without the intense breathing, compression, or packing. You just relax the muscles and let the vibrations from the hitting do the work of kind of shaking things loose and cleansing the internal system. This is often suggested for beginners.
And the rattan sticks are used differently again.
Yes. Hitting with rattan sticks uses paired sticks, and the focus isn't so much on deep vibration like the wire hitter, it's more about the shock of the contact.
Shock. Why would you want that?
Well, they claim the shock strengthens the skin, muscles, tendons, and bones, sort of toughening them up.
Yeah.
And it's also said to stimulate the nervous and lymphatic systems, which aids detoxification and can improve skin complexion. But importantly, the text specifies you don't hit the bones directly with the rattan sticks.
Right. The source mentions hitting lots of areas: abdomen, ribs, back lines, sides, head, jaw, arms, legs, even the soles of the feet. I thought it was interesting the preface mentioned hitting the jawbone specifically as potentially helping with tight jaw muscles, like TMJ.
Yes, that was noted. The idea being that vibrating the jawbone could help loosen those chronically tight muscles attached to it. The text provides pretty detailed maps of points and lines for all these areas.
And precautions for hitting, too, I assume.
Oh, definitely. Important ones. Never hit the spinal cord directly. Clench your teeth and press your tongue to the palate when hitting the head or neck area, presumably to absorb shock. Don't practice on a full stomach. And be prepared for detoxification effects, maybe burping, needing extra rest, or water.
Okay, that covers a lot, from internal breathing and compression to these, well, seemingly external methods like hitting. Now, the text introduces what it calls the highest level of physical practice in the system: Chi weightlifting.
Ah, yes, Chi weightlifting. This is where the source material includes some of its absolute strongest warnings. It's definitely presented as a very advanced practice. It builds significantly on everything else, especially the sexual energy massage techniques.
And a basic concept is lifting weights that are actually anchored to the genitals, using the body's internal structure somehow.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty extreme.
It certainly does sound extreme, and the text fully acknowledges its intensity. According to the source, the underlying principle is about leveraging what they call the chi muscle in the perineum,
Okay.
and crucially, strengthening this intricate network of fasciae, the connective tissues. The system says these fasciae link the genitals directly to the internal organs and glands.
Fasciae connecting genitals to organs.
That's the model presented. The lifting motion engages these fascial connections, and the organs and glands are apparently supposed to create an upward counterforce against the weight's downward pull. This whole process is described as strengthening the urogenital and pelvic diaphragms and dramatically increasing the flow of that potent Qing Qi we talked about. The key insight here is how the text views the body's internal structure, especially the fasciae, as these crucial pathways for energy flow and developing internal strength way beyond just simple mechanics.
And the ultimate goal, it's not just strengthening tissues, it's about releasing a high concentration of sexual energy and hormones for rejuvenation.
Exactly. The text explicitly states this practice releases the highest concentration of sexual energy and hormones. And this is aimed squarely at deeply rejuvenating the bone marrow and stimulating the pituitary gland, which they directly link to slowing down or delaying the aging process.
How is it actually done? What kind of weights?
Traditionally, they say men used to hang actual stones. Nowadays, it's described using lighter weights anchored with a special cloth sling for men around the penis and testicles, or for women, using a string attached to one of those jade eggs inserted vaginally.
Wow. This really sounds like something that requires immense care and, frankly, expert guidance. I noticed the source is incredibly emphatic about the prerequisites of the dangers here.
Absolutely. And you picked up on the most critical point. The warning for Chi weightlifting is probably the strongest, most explicit one in the entire text.
What does it say specifically?
It is stated unequivocally that this practice is restricted to people who have received individual personal training from a certified universal POW instructor. Full stop. The detailed description in the book, it's only for documentation for those who are already trained. It is absolutely not intended as instructions for beginners or, someone just reading the book out of curiosity.
So trying this just from reading the book is considered really dangerous within the system.
Critically dangerous. The text repeats that if someone undertakes this practice based only on the book, they do so entirely at his or her own risk, and that the Universal Tao organization cannot and will not be held responsible for any bad outcomes.
What kind of risks are we talking about?
They list significant ones: physical injury, general health problems, pain, even potential blood clots for men if it's done incorrectly, or other serious side effects. It's not taken lightly at all.
It sounds like mastering all those earlier practices, especially the energy work, isn't just recommended, it's essential groundwork before even thinking about this.
Definitely. The source stresses the absolute necessity of mastering all the sexual energy massage techniques from the earlier chapter before even considering Qi weightlifting.
Okay.
They also highlight specific prerequisites, like mastering the sexual power lock for men. That's crucial to prevent ejaculation and retain the energy and the orgasmic draw for women, to consolidate the Qing Qi. These are presented as vital for practicing safely.
And they even mention abstinence.
Yeah, they recommend abstinence in the early stages of learning Qi weightlifting, at least until you're proficient with the very lightest weights. Because losing sexual energy, they say, significantly diminishes your overall Qi and makes the practice potentially unsafe.
That's a whole lot of interconnected practices and warnings. And beyond the specific bone marrow Nei Kung techniques themselves, the source also says other disciplines within the broader universal Tao system are actually required supplements for practicing safely and effectively.
Yes, that's another key point. This system is presented as highly integrated. It's not just a pick-and-choose menu of exercises. The text clearly states you need working knowledge of the inner smile meditation.
Okay.
And crucially, the microcosmic orbit meditation. That microcosmic orbit is described as the primary pathway for circulating energy you've already stored internally, and also for distributing any newly cultivated energy throughout the body.
And it's positioned as a critical safety measure specifically for these bone marrow Nei Kung practices.
Absolutely essential. There's another strong warning right there. Practicing Bone Marrow Nei Kung without having mastered the microcosmic orbit meditation can cause irregular heartbeat, chest congestion, headaches, pain in the chest or back, and other problems. It's listed as a mandatory prerequisite. They also emphasize the healing love practice that's about cultivating and retaining sexual energy, building up the vital reserves needed for the more advanced stuff, and preventing you from draining your organs and glands.
And Iron Shirt Qigong thirds is also required. What's that for?
Yes. Iron Shirt Qigong Serve, the first level, focuses on packing qi into the layers of fascia that surround the organs and glands, sort of creating internal storage space and structure for the energy.
Reinforcing the internal structure.
Exactly. It's seen as necessary groundwork for safely and effectively absorbing and storing the kind of potent energy you're aiming for in Bone Marrow Nei Kung. And finally, they recommend the 6 healing sounds practice after your Nei Kung sessions.
Why then?
To release any trapped tension or excess heat generated during the practice, helping to balance the energy among the body's different energy centers.
It really underscores that this isn't just a book of exercises you can dip into. It's outlining a very complex, layered system where all these foundational practices and prerequisites are presented as absolutely essential for safety, let alone effectiveness, according to the source itself.
Exactly right. The constant repeated warnings throughout the text about needing personal instruction, especially for intense techniques like Thai weightlifting, really highlight how seriously the system views these practices. The book is explicitly framed as a supplement for people already trained, definitely not a standalone DIY guide to potentially dangerous techniques.
And they mention consulting doctors, too.
Yes, strongly recommend consulting a medical doctor about any existing health conditions before starting any of these practices.
So, bottom line, while the concepts, the practices, they might sound incredibly fascinating, they offer this really unique perspective on internal health and longevity. The overwhelming practical message from the source material itself about actually doing them is seek qualified guidance.
That is absolutely the single most important practical takeaway the text wants you to have. No question.
So what does this all mean then? We've taken a pretty deep dive into the concepts, the practices of bone marrow Nei Kung, at least as they're presented in the specific text from the Universal Tell system.
Yeah, we've seen how it lays out this path to health and longevity that's really focused on internal energy cultivation, rejuvenating bone marrow, enhancing life force.
Right, offering a perspective where maybe aging isn't just this inevitable decline, but something that can be, well, actively counteracted or influenced.
We've explored some core practices, bone breathing, bone compression, based on that insight that bones aren't just passive structures, they're active participants in energy work.
And we looked at cultivating that potent Qing Qi through sexual energy massage and the surprising use of hitting, framed not just as physical impact, but as a way to use vibration for energetic cleansing and absorption.
And we also touched on that very advanced and very heavily cautioned practice of Qi weightlifting, which really highlights the text's view of internal fascia as these key pathways, connecting organs and enhancing energy flow.
But it is so crucial to reiterate those strong warnings we found all through the source material.
Absolutely paramount.
The text really emphasizes that these practices, particularly Qi weightlifting, are advanced. They ideally require personal instruction from a certified universal Tao instructor. Trying to practice just from a book carries significant risk injury, health problems.
And it's explicitly stated, isn't it? The book is a supplement for students who are already trained. It's not a substitute for medical treatment, and huge caution is advised, especially if you have existing health conditions or if you're thinking of attempting anything beyond the most basic breathing and compression without proper guidance.
Definitely. So this whole exploration, it offers a really powerful window into a complex internal art, one that views the body, energy flow, through a very different lens than, say, most Western fitness or health models you might encounter.
It really does. It highlights the potential the texts suggest lies within our own structure. Our bones acting, as that preface suggested, like invisible wands that maybe we don't even realize we have the power to control or strengthen.
So perhaps the provocative thought to leave you with is that core idea from the text, that maybe our bodies don't have to deteriorate just because time passes, that perhaps we have more options, more influence regarding our aging process and vitality than we might realize. What new perspective does this deep dive give you on the potential hidden within your own structure?